Hello, so medicine interview season is just around the corner, so if you're unsure about how to start preparing, you've come to the right place. Before I start giving you my step-by-step process on how to prepare for your interview, just a little bit of information about myself. So my name is AliMahdi. I'm now finally a first year medical student at the University of Nottingham. By the time you're watching this video, I will probably have moved into university already, which is absolutely crazy. So I was successful in 3 of my medicine interviews and I got waitlisted by one university. So I like to think my interview skills are half decent. So without further ado, here we go. So first of all, before I go into how you should prepare, it's important to know when you should actually start your preparation. So typically, medicine interview season starts at around November and can go up until March, April time, which is quite a long time period. So first thing I would suggest you do is look at the universities you've applied to. On their websites, they may give rough dates of when they typically hold their interviews. And if you can't find it on the university's website, have a look at forums like the student room. So once you know kind of a rough estimate of when your university holds their interview, just keep a mental note of that, and that will kind of help to guide when you should start your preparation. Now, at times you'll be invited only a few weeks before your actual interview, which is definitely not enough time to prepare. So my advice would be to start preparing before you even get an invite for your interview. So generally, unless all your interviews are late into the interview season, I would say to start preparing for your interviews just after your application has gone in the middle of October, especially if you do have an interview in November, December time. If your first interview is towards kind of the later end of December, perhaps after the Christmas holidays, then I would suggest perhaps starting your interview practice a little bit later, perhaps in November time. So now let's briefly go into the different types of interviews. So first of all, there's the classic traditional panel style interview. So this is where you're interviewed by anywhere between 1 and 4 interviewers who ask you a series of questions. They could be long or short questions, and it's more conversational, so they'll ask you follow-up questions based on your answers. So some universities that use this style of interview are Oxford, Cambridge, King's College London, UCL, and several others too. Now the next style of interview is the MMI, or multiple mini interviews. So in this style of interview, you'll essentially have several different stations which last a fixed period of time. Now usually you'll have anywhere between 5 to 10 stations. They could last anywhere between 1 and 10 minutes depending on the university. Each station may be assessing a different skill or attribute that you have. The thing that's different with MMIs is the stations are not only questions, but they can be task-based or role-play scenarios. Now the MMIs at different universities can vary a lot, so make sure you're aware of kind of how the MMI is set up and perhaps any typical stations that do come up for your specific university that you've applied to. Nowadays, most universities do use the MMI style for their interviews. However, they do differ in the length of each station, the number of stations, and perhaps even the types of questions that are being asked. So make sure to check out the university's website so you're aware of how the MMI is run. Now I'll post a video in the near future specifically focusing on MMIs and different stations that can come up. So be sure to subscribe and look out for that. Now the final type is the group interview. Now this is quite rare, as I believe only 1 or 2 universities do it, but I'll put those names over here. It essentially involves a task which you and other applicants are required to complete with the interviewers watching. So it's really assessing your teamwork, your collaboration, and perhaps even your leadership skills. So generally, it's really important that you're aware of how the university will interview you and perhaps even types of questions that could come up. So make sure you're aware of this, as this will really guide your preparation. But generally, preparing for MMIs and panels, there is a lot of overlap with many questions that come up. So now let's finally get into how to actually prepare for your interview. For the majority of your interviews, you'll be asked different questions from a variety of different categories, including your motivations to study medicine, any skills you have, any work experience or volunteering that you have, perhaps ethics, perhaps any university specific questions, so why you want to study at the university or why you like the city, and there are several other categories as well. So in my preparation for these sorts of questions, I'd like to split it into 4 phases. Now, the first is to research. Of course, the first thing you need to do is research any types of questions that could come up. So if you do a quick Google search, it'll come up with hundreds and thousands of different medicine interview style questions. I would suggest using websites like Medify, Medic Portal, and even forums like Student Room. Now, some universities may also have information on their website about any areas they may be interviewing around, So be sure to look out for that and find any interview questions that align with those areas to help you prepare as effectively as you can for your specific university. Now, the second stage is to type out answers to all of these questions. This can be done in bullet point form or as mini notes, but I would recommend against writing a full scripted answer and just trying to memorize it. This will make you stumble in your interview as you're just trying to remember your scripted answer. And to be honest, it's impossible to memorize hundreds and thousands of different answers. And on top of that, the interviewer will realize that you are reading out a scripted answer, and it will not help your chances at all. But writing shorthand notes can be very helpful to kind of plan out what you're going to say for each question and to kind of give you a guide of where you should be going with the question, so you're not kind of going off track when you're answering the question in an interview. So make a Word document, write out all the questions you found in your research phase, and answer as many as you can in bullet point form, of course. Now, once you've done all of this, the third step is just to practice. Take a Word document with all the questions and the answers that you've written and practice answering the questions verbally. Practice by yourself, in front of a mirror, in front of a camera, and then move on to practicing with friends or family. Now, initially, of course, you're going to be reading out your bullet points or using them as kind of cue cards, but after some practice, you can gradually move away from using them, as of course in the interview you're not going to be able to have any bullet points with you. Now, the only way you will get better and more confident at answering questions is through practice, practice, and more practice. Now, the final phase in your preparation is doing mock interviews. Ask a teacher or a friend or a family member to prepare some questions and run a full mock interview for you. Additionally, there are companies online that you can find who you can pay and they'll run mock interviews for you. But if you can do it for free, then why not? Doing mock interviews is really helpful. Having done a few myself, I would highly recommend it, as it's obviously the most realistic preparation you'll get for your interview. Perhaps even take the opportunity to dress smartly to make it even more realistic. And make sure, most importantly, you get feedback from your interviewers, as this will really help you to avoid making the same mistakes over and over again and help you develop with your interview skills. Now, make sure in an interview that you focus not only on the quality of the content of your answers, but also your non-verbal and verbal communication skills. So the pace of your speaking, your tone, your body language, your hand gestures, your eye contact. These are things which are equally as important as having good quality answers. If you're someone who struggles with this, my best advice would just to be get out of your comfort zone and practice with other people, or even film it and watch it back to examine how you're actually speaking and how you present yourself. And of course, the more you do it, the better you'll become. So essentially, these 4 steps that I've given you will hopefully shape your interview preparation. In the near future, I'll be making more videos with advice on medical school interviews, including specific MMI stations that could come up and how to actually structure your interview answers. So be sure to subscribe and look out for that. If you have any questions, please feel free to comment or contact me with my details in the description below. I hope you found this video useful and now you can go smash your interviews. Please feel free to like, comment and subscribe, and look out for future videos to help you with your medicine application.